played well for a while and now have slid back to probably what their level truly is. I think they've kind of overachieved to win 40% of their games so far. 7 of their last 10 dropped, and the Angels have just been a sad disappointment with injury, no Mike Trout, big crowds out there game after game to watch bad baseball. Well, over to the National League where the Phillies are an absolute wagon. They did lose on Sunday, but that was only their third loss in their last 10 games. They have baseball's best winning percentage at .704, and they have a remarkable 6-game lead over the Braves, even though the Braves have played .600 baseball this year. They've been outstanding at home, as have the Phillies. And the rest of the division is just playing out the string. The Mets were a 100-win team last year, but they're 15 games back. We'll probably be trading some players. Huge payroll, no results this year. In the National League Central, it's the Milwaukee Brewers. We talk about it time after time. Baseball's most anonymous good team. They play pretty well at home. They play very well on the road. They played a whole slew of road games so far. They played 10 more road games than they've played at home. So that bodes well for them. The Cubs have hit the skids after playing surprising baseball for a while and just a titch over 500. It's good for 3.5 back. The Cardinals, all of a sudden, have something going. They have a long way to go, but they've almost gotten to the 500 mark with 5 straight wins and 8 in their last 10. Pirates are kind of a middling bunch. They play in a beautiful ballpark. They have an exciting young pitcher in Paul Skeens, but they're probably not ready for prime time yet, and the Cincinnati Reds fall into that disappointment category. They have Ellie De La Cruz, who is probably baseball's most exciting player, albeit not the best, but they have underachieved this year, mainly because their pitching hasn't been up to snuff. And out west, the Dodgers are playing .600 ball this year, but somehow they seem disappointing. They have baseball's best player probably right now. Well, I don't know if he's played the best, but Shohei Ohtani has been great. But the Dodgers just every now and then hit a funk, like right now, 5 losses in a row. But they control that division easily because only one other team is at 500. That's the Giants, who have played well of late, winning 8 of their last 10. They're kind of a nondescript crew, but they do a lot of things right. Generally, good attention to detail. They have a good manager. And the Giants, I think, have the ability to put on some kind of a run towards a wild card, but I don't think they nearly have the goods to flag down the Dodgers. Padres and Diamondbacks, both disappointing teams, meandering around 500. The Rockies not disappointing, but terrible. Baseball's second worst team, although they've played a little bit better of late. There's your baseball roundup. A lot of baseball on this Memorial Day. That's fitting. And one other note from baseball is that baseball's one of the 2 MVPs last year, a unanimous choice, Ronald Acuna of the Braves. He is out for the year with a knee injury. Never great when a star player is out of things as far as baseball is concerned. We miss those guys, and a shame. Ronald Acuna now can officially be said to have knee problems that are probably going to linger. This is his second ACL injury in his career. Well, at least the problems for the Braves are one player. For Sporting Kansas City, it's a whole defense. That's really the issue for them. They lost again. They lost to Portland. Portland hadn't been playing very well. Sporting tied them in a wild one, 3-all earlier this year. They lose this one by a count of 2-1. Memo Rodriguez had an outstanding goal. Sporting has scored quite a few goals from outside the box this year that have been kind of fun to watch, but they've been an entertaining team if you weren't a fan, because they've scored a lot of goals, but they've given up a lot. How many? They have allowed multiple goals in 10 straight MLS games. That is a record. 10 consecutive games where they've allowed at least 2 goals, and that's not going to get you much. And Peter Vermes, who called out his team a couple of games ago, well, he probably did a couple of years ago too, but a couple of games ago, and he seems a little lost right now. He's kind of scratching his head. He played the card where he ripped his team. They have responded with more spirited efforts, but it hasn't been good enough for them to win. And they're in last place, and they're in trouble. And it's the second year in a row they've been in this type of position. And it'll be interesting to see how the dynamics off the pitch are handled by Sporting Kansas City. No such problems on the pitch, off the pitch, business-wise, attention-wise. It's all good for the Kansas City Current. They play in a beautiful riverfront ballpark. you don't really call it a ballpark when it's soccer. It's a stadium. But anyway, they haven't lost there. They haven't lost on the road. They haven't lost anywhere. And they have set a NWSL record already by having 15 different goal scorers, and we're not even close to halfway through the season for them. A great story has been the Kansas City Current, taking the spotlight away from their men's counterparts, and people having a lot of fun going to those games down on the riverfront. Golf was hit with tragedy over the weekend. Grayson Murray, who seemingly had sort of maybe gotten past a really bad patch in his life and had seemed to find some serenity, apparently did not, because he took his own life on Saturday. He'd been he was a super talented junior player, considered one of the greatest talents maybe to come along in a long time. Wake Forest coach called him the most talented player he's ever had, and he only had him for one semester. He won early in his career, but he had alcohol problems, depression problems, had apparently gotten sober for a while, but obviously fell back. He withdrew from the tournament. He only had 2 holes left in his round on Friday and was right about at the cut line when he turned to his partners, including Peter Malnati, who's from the University of Missouri, and said, "I'm done. I don't feel well." And that was certainly an understatement, because we don't have details now, and frankly, we don't need to have details, as his family released a statement that did acknowledge that he had taken his own life. So it just shows that success in your craft is not really meaningful if you're not able to enjoy it. He won a tournament this year on the PGA Tour, the Sony Open in Hawaii, and he takes his own life. And as I mentioned earlier, Harry Higgs, who won the Korn Ferry Tour event, the second straight one in dramatic fashion, and that ensures that he'll be back in full standing on the PGA Tour this year as he wins in Knoxville. He had some beautiful comments as part of his victory speech afterwards. As my wife serenades us, I don't know if you've heard this, perhaps it's fitting and as a tribute maybe to the sadness of Grayson Murray. She is singing away. Sometimes I don't know whether you can hear it or not, but she's especially hitting some high notes right now. So that adds a little extra flavor to this particular podcast. And anyway, on the course, it was Davis Riley who was the story, and the story was that he was able to play in the final group with Scottie Scheffler and beat him handily. Scheffler didn't have it, but most people didn't have it on Sunday at the tournament in Fort Worth, the Charles Schwab Challenge, and that was certainly a tremendous performance by a very talented player who had been struggling on the PGA Tour, Davis Riley. He had a 4-shot lead heading into Sunday, but was playing in the final group with Scottie Scheffler, and who among us didn't think that Scheffler had a very good chance to flag him down and that he might collapse under the weight of Scottie Scheffler. He did not, and Davis Riley gets the championship as he wins at the Charles Schwab Challenge down at Colonial Country Club. That's a historic tournament. It used to be called the Colonial, and is played at Colonial, of course, that had an incredible renovation. They basically redid the whole course in less than a year and resodded the whole thing. Anyway, Riley is the winner, and Scottie Scheffler actually fades into a tie for second. That's a bad week for him. A tie for second for Scheffler with Keegan Bradley. He is tied. Mentioned the NBA. It will be, in all likelihood, because no team has ever overcome an 0-3 deficit to win in the NBA. It's happened in the NHL, where we've got a couple of good series going on that are in their early stages in their conference finals. But last night it was the Dallas Mavericks winning in a very compelling, close game to the finish. And that's really what we've had in all the NBA games. The Celtics came back from 18 down in the third game in the Eastern Conference Finals the other day, and were able to win their game. So each team is up 3-0. The Celtics can finish off their series on this Memorial Day, and they are likely to face off against an old, friend and enemy, Kyrie Irving, who didn't enjoy his time in Boston much at all. And he and Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks will provide the opposition. The Celtics will be solid favorites, I would believe, in that one. That should be an entertaining series. We'll see when it starts. We'll see if the Pacers or the T-Wolves put up a little fight before they succumb, because 152 times the team has been down 0-3 in a series, and 152 times they've lost. So I would say the odds are pretty darn good that it will happen again. As I am serenaded, I will take you out as well. High notes are being hit. I hope high notes are hit in your life today on Memorial Day. We've had some ups and downs during this particular episode, some tragedy and triumph, to say the least. That's what sports is all about, and sometimes the real life intercedes and shows us that sports is just enjoyable for us because it is fun and games, and it isn't really all that important, although sometimes we certainly feel that way. And being a fan is short for fanatic, and that means that perhaps irrationally you react to the world of sports, but that's what makes it fun. And that's why I get to talk about it every Monday on Monday Musings, Danny and Friends Sports Wrap. We've got our music podcast this week, and we've got another great profile coming up, an ex-Chief. I'll just tease you, Chiefs Hall of Famer for Friday. All that through the week on the Reasonably Irreverent podcast and this edition of Monday Musings, Danny and Friends Sports Wrap. It's presented by ASFCA.
We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new. This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture, with 8 convenient locations in the Kansas City metro. Dr. Brad Woodall and his friendly team will improve your health and outlook with every visit. Find out more at asfca.com/Danny.